Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale DC figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at John Cena's Peacemaker. Now, I got mine from Pop Collectibles at a discount. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped the link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, there is a lot going on, but that perfectly suits Peacemaker's vibe. Down below, an image of the figure himself looking just incredibly realistic, and I do like the white outline, it helps him pop against the background. We do have some eagles back there, or doves? Birds of some kind at least. Some metallic silver foil stars meant to represent the US flag, and his name also in metallic silver foil. Oh yes, the Firebird with the yellow clouds, then the rainbow in the background, and the deep, rich, saturated navy blue. Oh, this is destined to be on someone's car hood. We also have Peacemaker on the side, as well as these light scratches on the surface. The box isn't damaged. That's actually the way it's supposed to look. Then around the back, Peacemaker's helmet in metallic silver foil. It's nice and reflective. His name, as well as warnings and legal info. But the box art doesn't end there. When you slide off the slip cover, you have an open window showcasing Peacemaker inside. His name in a yellow cloud, the rainbow working its way around the side of the box, and a lightning bolt. Why the hell not? It feels like this was drawn by a kid, and I guess Peacemaker is a big frickin' kid. We have a dove back here and a read up. Feel free to pause to read if you so choose. Plus a fire on the rainbow. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the box art, but I absolutely love it. Well, that solves that mystery. There is Eagly right on top of the clam tray, so you'll probably get to him before you get to Peacemaker. First in-hand impressions? Bloody hell, this figure is extremely heavy. I was not expecting him to weigh anywhere near as much as he does. Kinda glad he does though, because John Cena is a unit, so it makes sense that the figure itself would be relatively hefty. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. Up on top, we do have this rusty, nasty looking US flag, almost as though it was painted on the side of a barn or something. We then have this textured overlay with Peacemaker's face, Eagly, and his Dove of Peace symbol. The rest of the base is high gloss. Then it says Peacemaker the series up front, and then for the nameplate, I love printed nameplates. Please, Hot Toys, keep doing this. This looks fantastic. Up top, an adjustable crotch grabber. Now you do get two different Peacemaker helmets. In the show, they actually have different abilities. They serve different purposes. They were made by Peacemaker's dad. They're both done in this vacuum metallized chrome, and they do feel like relatively brittle plastic. So do be careful when you're popping these on his head sculpt, don't put too much pressure on them. Because you do get two, you could technically leave one on the display base as some set dressing and have him wearing the other. While I don't want to go into too much detail right now about the faceplates, we'll save that for later, we do have two wildly different expressions. The skin tone is pretty tanned, but I do like the skin texture. Also, this one's got a magnetic removable tongue, and because it is on a magnet, you can move it around to make it look like it's going off to one side. I'm so glad they included Eagly, and I'm even more glad that he is this good. The texture on the wings is perfect, very fine, nicely sculpted, and there's some dry brushing over the top of the dark feathers and some washes in the crevices for the light feathers. Just be careful with his talons though, because resting on Peacemaker's silicone arms, I would be a little bit worried about these hard plastic nails. His head sculpt is on a ball joint, so it looks up and down, left and right, and you can tilt the whole thing. Plus the eyes, even being as small as they are glossy and well painted. Now you do get some swap out wings for Eagly. They are just plugged in with these mushroom style pegs. They're a little bit tricky to insert the first time. As the port starts to loosen up, does get a little bit easier. You can mix and match, of course, if you want to have one wing up and the other down, or you can have him in full pose, full flight mode by plugging in both spread wings. Yeah, I think he's going to look like this in my display. I am kind of worried about him toppling over, but I think his tail will help with that. Kind of like a 3-point tripod situation. See, what did I tell you? He stands just fine. Now you do get his tomahawk or hatchet. It is a little bit spiky, so do be careful when you're trying to get this into his hand. It is very shiny and metallic, and it does have some speckling on the surface that almost looks like blood, save for the fact that it's brown instead of red. You do have no fewer than 5 doves of peace, 1 on each side of the handle, and 3 going straight through the blade. Speaking of blades, we do get his sword, which we do see in the Suicide Squad. The bottom part of the hilt, the crossguard, is a dove of peace, and there is some sculpted detail on the end of the pommel. The grip looks good, the blade is shiny, and there is some more speckling on the surface, just like the hatchet. For something that's not supposed to be removable Hot Toys, there is a lot of detail on this pistol. And we get a swap out silencer. Now, the silencer doesn't peg in super securely, it's a little bit loose, but it gets the job done. You can also, weirdly enough, remove the magazine, and there is some painted bullet detail up on top, plus some washers in the crevices. Again, a weird choice for something that's not supposed to be removable. We'll talk about how I got this out of the holster a little bit later. Same thing with the trigger finger hand. It seems like a bit of a sus inclusion considering the pistol is not supposed to leave the holster. There's a lot of detail on the hands, you've got some stitching lines, some wrinkling, and some bunching towards the fingertips. And I love the blue they've gone with. It's nice and rich and saturated, and then they've added washers over the top to highlight all of the sculpted detail. We've got 1 trigger finger hand for the right side, an open palm hand for the left side, an open palm hand for the right side, 2 closed fists, as well as a gripping hand for the left to either hold the hatchet or the sword. What we are going to do now, though, is get Peacemaker himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Are you freaking kidding me? How does he look this good? How do we go from the first prototype being a literal disaster to the updated prototype being significantly better, and now the final product, I reckon, is just perfect. Now, there are a couple of things that may grind your gears, and we'll discuss pros and cons as always. Right now, just standing here, I have very little to say in terms of complaints. I am so freaking happy with how this guy turned out. The outfit is colorful where it needs to be and accurate, plus mostly fabric, so that's a plus. And then the proportions are kind of a little bit stumpy, exactly like John Cena. Dude has some weird proportions, but he is huge. And this body captures that to a T, shrunk down to 1/6 scale. He's almost entirely seamless from head to toe, and that just makes him look like a real person standing in front of us. Then the icing on the cake? Their head sculpt, the shiny chrome helmet, the interchangeable faceplate, the moving eyes. We're about to discuss all of it. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Peacemaker's head sculpt. This is how you take a figure from mid at best with the original prototype with just the screaming faceplate to absolutely perfect. This is John Cena from every angle. I don't think it's subjective this time. The likeness is there. Now, the head sculpt is sitting on the neck separately, so there is a seam line. It does allow for a greater range of motion, and considering Peacemaker can be pretty goofy, I think it was worth the trade-off to have this head sculpt be as expressive as possible. It does have moving eyes, we'll get there. The skin texture is nice and HD, there's also a 5 o'clock shadow down below, and all of the detail is extremely sharp. Oh, hell yes. The original helmet is simple and pretty classy. I like this one, it's nice and straightforward. Whereas this one, with the added turquoise stripes up top and the yellow around the Peacemaker symbol, not to mention what it can do in the show. Oh, I'm going with this one in the display, no question. If you remove the front of the faceplate, there is actually some hidden detail under here on the head sculpt itself. Now, you can never actually display him like this because the top part of his head is straight up missing and there's this seam along the front, but there's a hairline. He's got eyebrows, and he's got the tops of his ears, which is crazy because, like I said, you can't actually display him like that, and none of that stuff is really all that visible. I mean, you can see some of it, like his eyebrows up underneath the front of the helmet and his ears sticking out down below. Everything else is obscured, like the seam line along the front. It's completely hidden by the helmet. So this is his alternative faceplate, the angry slash screaming one. The teeth are very nicely painted. They're actually separate pieces of plastic, so there's some proper depth there. It's not just single plane sculpting. You can see his tongue in there too. But you also have an alternative tongue. It attaches magnetically, and now dude looks absolutely insane. But that's exactly what I want from Peacemaker. I love the neutral expression faceplate. This one, though, this is just something else entirely. Back to stock, and now we have serious Peacemaker. See how just moving the eyes can completely alter the expression? You can move them up, having him look more mean, or with the alternative faceplate, you can angle them down, having him look more crazy. By the way, the faceplate is magnetic. It's super straightforward to remove. To adjust the eyes, you do have to disassemble the helmet. I would suggest remove the head sculpt first, then use the tool to shift the eyes around, because if you don't, there's not a lot of access. It's kinda tricky to get in there, and you will be bumping into a bunch of stuff. So this body is new. I don't think we've seen this body with any previous figures. It is absolutely huge. The girth here is wild, and it's so freaking heavy. This guy weighs a ton. Now, originally, the first prototype did have exposed elbow joints. I'm glad they ditched them in favor of silicon. Now, yes, the elbow joints are going to be a little bit more fragile, perhaps, because of the silicon, but it does feel very thick, and there is an air gap between the body inside and then the silicon overlay. So you can bend it a couple of clicks without putting too much pressure on this material. The skin texture is great, it feels nice and soft, and the joints, even though they're ratcheted, they are just so freaking fluid. You do also have some natural bending and bunching of the skin that leaves some very realistic creases around the front. When you bend your elbows, there are some creases, so that just makes it look even more realistic. We've got some vein work and also a little bit of shading in the crevices. The pecs are actually sculpted hard plastic, same thing with the neck, and the skin tone match between the body, the neck, and the head sculpt is perfect. No complaints from me. The shirt is proper stretchy spandex, with a little bit of this rubbery material around the edges and also on the sides with this padding. The rest of it though, this is hard plastic, there is no padding to fight when it comes to articulation. My favorite detail on the shirt though is the Peacemaker symbol. There's a little bit of dirt and grime on the edges, and there's a lot of shading around the white dove. I don't know if it's coming across on camera, in person it does more so. There is some darker shading on the seams to make them look slightly more soiled and dirty. Then up top, he does have these shiny metallic rank badges or epaulets. Not exactly sure what they're supposed to be, but they are accurate to how they looked in the show. You can push this cuff, this cover, over the top of the hand, covering up the wrist peg. Depending on, of course, the angle of the hand. If it is more extreme, then yes, the cuff does start to move up along his forearm. Now, there is some leather grain texture, it's nice and consistent between the hand and the cuff. There's also some wrinkling, and some washes in the sculpted line work that kind of acts like shadow. So from a distance, it does convincingly look like one single piece. I mean, it's not flawless, you can still tell that there's a step out, although the seam line is obscured by the sculpted in lines. Very clever. Now the belt is made of this textured vinyl, and it is velcroed around the front underneath this plastic faux belt buckle. The belt buckle itself is nice and shiny. Around the back, there is this little flap, and that's what's covering the actual connection method. Like I said, the belt buckle is faux, this is not actually holding the belt together. I do like the asymmetry, having the holster off to this side and on the other just having that ribbed blue material like the shirt, and more heavily weighting the belt to the left side, just makes him look a little bit more visually interesting. There is some textured leather grain on the pockets, these are sculpted plastic, and some airbrush shading around the edges. The only thing that's actually removable from these pockets though is the silencer. The magazines are fixed in there, and the same thing with the walkie-talkie. Do be careful with that antenna, it does seem like it'd be a little bit fragile. Now for the holster, there's that leather grain, I keep saying leather grain texture, but that's the best way to describe what's going on. I also love the deep rich blue, which is darker as compared to the cuffs and the hands. Now, out of the box, you cannot remove the pistol. It is fixed in place. But not with glue, luckily. It's just held in with a little peg driven through the trigger guard. So if you get in there with an X-Acto knife, slice off the peg, then you can remove the pistol. And now you've got a proper, working, functional holster. You can just slide the pistol in and out of it. Which means that when you use the included trigger finger hand and you plug the silencer onto the barrel, you can have him holding his pistol, which was never actually advertised as being possible when this guy originally went up for pre-order. His pants are just mostly this light tan material. There is some rubbery stuff on the sides, everything else is fabric, so I reckon you can go crazy with the posing. There is a little bit of give, although they are quite tight on the body because dude's quads are huge. And these are sculpted plastic, there is not a ton of padding. His knee pads are ribbed, and he does slim down towards his boots. The boots themselves are made of this rubbery material, and you get a little bit of flex out of them. I still kind of wish they were a split cut boot design though, for maximum range of motion. I do particularly like this tab on the side, and the quilted detail around the front. There's some wrinkling, some stitching sculpted in, plus some fully sculpted tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, I do apologise that Peacemaker's helmet is being blown out. It is chrome, and chrome is notoriously hard to shoot. I think you can see where the top of his head is anyway. He is shorter than King Shark and significantly less wide, of course, King Shark is massive. And right now, this is it. This is all we have from Hot Toys from the Suicide Squad film. Even then, technically Peacemaker isn't from that movie, he's based off his show appearance. So they only made one figure from that movie, and it wasn't Harley, surprisingly. It was this power pose King Shark. Next up, Rick Flag, by Ganghood, actually. This is our only Joel Kinnaman Rick Flag figure, and it's based off the first Suicide Squad film, not the significantly better second one. Now, I was hoping that someone would make Rick in his yellow shirt without the goatee from the new movie. Unfortunately, nobody did, and I guess they're not going to, because, spoiler alert, Peacemaker killed Rick Flag in the film. That's more like it. Come on, the third parties. Thank goodness for Thunder Toys and this awesome polka dot man. He's really, really good. He is shorter than Peacemaker and 100%. King Shark, this polka dot man, and the next figure we're going to look at, they are all going to be displayed next to Peacemaker. Thunder Toys Bloodsport. While I do prefer the So-So Toys head sculpt, I do like the armor on this one better, and there is a significant amount of die-cast metal. He's extremely heavy. Considering this guy did kill Peacemaker, not for good, just for a little while, and they had that rivalry in the film, ending up in Bloodsport shooting a bullet through Peacemaker's bullet, hitting him in the neck, I reckon they've got some unfinished business. These two were destined to be displayed next to each other. Going over articulation, it's not often we get a brand new body like this, so I am pretty curious to get stuck in. Starting off with Peacemaker's head sculpt, it's on a fixed neck with a ball joint up on top. Looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. I'm fairly confident the arms are pegged in separately to the body. That means we can move them without stressing out the silicone. There is no real way of knowing that, of course, unless we take the shirt off, and I don't intend to do that. They will go up to there, forward and back. There is also a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Ratcheted double bend at the elbow going past 90, and that's where they've incorporated the swivel. Not at the bicep, but instead down here at the elbow. For the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. The torso crunches forward to there, going back to there, swivel, and pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there, surprisingly on ratchets. I wasn't expecting that. Going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee going past 90, but this is a really stiff joint. I reckon there's some padding underneath his pants. And lastly, the boots. Now there is a bit of flexibility to them. There's a double ball peg inside. It's mostly swivel though. Forward and back a touch, as well as a little bit of ankle tilt. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is right out of the box, the pistol is not removable. There is a peg on either side of the inside of the holster driven through the trigger guard. If you do want to remove the pistol, you need to snip that peg, and as you can see, it leaves an ugly ass mark on the inside. Not to mention, there isn't a ton of access. Trying to get an X-Acto knife in there to cut that just wasn't super easy. The second annoying thing, and this is nothing new, we see this all the time. Still, I would have liked to have seen them do a little bit better here. When you bring the wrist peg down, this glove cuff does slide up, exposing the lighter blue wrist peg and a little bit of the skin tone. The third annoying thing is unfortunately there's no unhelmeted head sculpt. This figure was one unhelmeted head sculpt away from being perfection. Now I did commission one from V. Collectibles painted by Rodman. However, unfortunately, number one, the skin tone doesn't match, this is significantly lighter. And number two, it's a fixed neck head sculpt, because the prototype actually did have a fixed neck, whereas the final one, it doesn't. The head sculpt is a separate piece, so my custom head sculpt just isn't compatible. The first cool thing is, even though the pistol technically isn't supposed to be removable, I'm glad they included a trigger finger hand and a separate silencer that slots into his belt. That's just them being a little bit cheeky with the DC licensing. I only wish the pistol was ever so slightly more easily removable. The second cool thing is options. You have two different helmets to choose from, you've got moving eyes, and two different faceplates. But that's not all. As you know, when you slide on this faceplate, you've got a removable tongue as well. You can completely alter the expression on this Peacemaker. You can go from wacky to stern. It's entirely up to you, 100% customizable. The third cool thing is Eagly. This is Hot Toys' best 1/6 scale animal to date. Usually the detail's really soft and the paint applications are lacking. This time, neither of those things are the case. The detail's pretty sharp actually. It's got decent range of motion for his head sculpt, and you get switch out wings. Wrapping up on John Cena's Peacemaker from the Peacemaker TV series by Hot Toys. You're freaking killed it, Hot Toys. This is as close to perfect as I have ever seen from any figure. The proportions are spot on, a little bit stumpy, exactly like John Cena, but he's massive, so it all works out in the end, I suppose. The head sculpt with the interchangeable mouth plate and the moving eyes and the two helmets and the magnetic tongue. Y'all just went for it, and I'm so glad you did because it worked. This guy is absolutely mind-blowingly good. He's completely seamless, the arms are this really nice soft silicone material, but they feel robust at the same time, and there's a ton of texture and detail to them. The outfit is fabric for the most part, so you can go crazy with the posing, just be careful of those elbow joints though. And then the accessories. The only thing that's missing, in my opinion, is the shield. I would have loved to have seen that, but it is not a deal breaker. You get the hatchet, you get the sword, you get Eagly with interchangeable swap out wings. And you kinda sorta get the pistol. You do have to do a little bit of work to get there, but when you do, it is so worth it. And I think they knew that you were going to take it out too, because they included a removable silencer and a trigger finger hand. I'm glad they did all of that. This guy is now one of my favorite DC figures in the collection. Actually, no, scratch that. He's now one of my favorite figures in the entire collection. Yeah, seriously, he is that good. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped the link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.